Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Bear Season 4, Episode 8. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we have the opening with Sid. It's a very neat parallel and even more catastrophist parallel sequence like Carmi's dream at the beginning of Episode 8, of the Season 1 finale. And her kind of going through the same thing too, and kind of like beating herself up about like, right, basically, if you do all this, everything will amount to nothing, and you will basically, it will be a waste of all the time and effort people put into you. So it's a lot of the pressure Sydney's putting on herself that like, once again, she even said last episode, her greatest fear is failure. And that is being trumpeted here in this moment where it's just kind of like, right, like, you failing means like everything that everyone put time and effort, especially when she's got her decision between the Adam situation and the Bear situation, where it's like, if I choose Adam, that means I'm letting down the Bear, and I'm failing them and everything that they put the time and effort and all the connections we've made and the better cook and chef that I've become because of it. But then it's also like, if I stay with the Bear, then I'm probably failing like the future opportunities I could have, the opportunities I could create for myself in a different light, in a different venue. I think a lot of that is culminating in Sydney, and she's drowning in it. And I mean, even to the point, like, obviously a lot of her dialogue is heavily drowned out throughout that sequence of people rushing by in the rain and everything. Then that next sequence where she's like in a theater that's empty. I mean, once again, like, how you interpret that metaphor of like, is that, I guess you could be like the emptiness of like the uncertainty of her future, or maybe once again kind of leaning into the whole like, I'm here alone on a stage and the audience is empty, the stage is empty, it's just me, and her kind of running. You could be like, well, that's her running from her indecisions. I don't know. It's up to interpretation. Maybe there is a clearer answer that other people are getting from that. I'm just like, I don't know. Just her being alone on the stage, I think it's just kind of, I mean, it's also meant to be that parallel of she was alone in that kitchen during the show. I mean, I even love that it even had like a title card and intro. It's just like a little different from Carmi's. Is actually hers, like, at least seemed like an actual proper show with an opening title card. But yeah, she wakes up and eventually she calls Adam, which shocked me. I thought maybe, I was completely wrong, because I was pretty certain, I was like, she's going to choose Adam, but I also thought that might not happen till the end of the season. Was not expecting her. We got 2 episodes left and she's already made her choice early in the episode, and she tells Adam like, oh, thank you for being so patient and stuff like that. She's like, yeah, I'm going to stay at the Bear. And you could tell how frustrated he was, and I thought like, okay, he's not going to let it show. And he's like, well, no, you don't have to apologize for making such an idiotic choice. I was like, hey, yo, Adam, you're crashing out a little bit, my guy. I mean, there's layers to it where you can kind of understand. Still doesn't make him less of a dick for doing that. Which is, once again, so interesting too, considering Carmi has been so much less of a dick this season. So for Adam to be the one that kind of crashes out a little bit like that. Once again, it's understandable because Sydney was kind of stringing him along in her indecision. Because I think, this is my interpretation, and maybe I'm wrong for thinking this. I feel like Adam needs Sydney more than Sydney needs him, because I think he was banking so much on Sydney working with him, because it's like, that would give me a leg up having you, because legitimately we actually don't know who else Adam has gotten, because it might be a thing of his investors and everything. Like, if he doesn't have Sydney, it doesn't, like, he might not get he has the funding and the backing, but he won't have the consistency behind backing, because we haven't seen Adam with anyone else. He's been so dogged about getting Sydney, and it feels like it's because he needs her so much, because he's like, without Sydney, this all falls apart. Like, I hedged my bet on Sydney because I thought I could get her. But once again, it could also just be like, yo, I wasted so much time trying to get you. I could have been getting someone else. But like I said, like, we didn't really see anyone else, because I think he was hedging so much of his bets on Sydney. And also, I think some of what he said, I think there's validity in him thinking like, you are wasting your skills at the Bear. The Bear is a sinking ship. It's like, once again, like, the fact is, he's been such a decent enough dude, like, very talkative, but that's because they were in the honeymoon phase. We're in the courting phase, and I'm trying to sweet talk you, and now that you just basically are like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work out. It's not the same, but it's the equivalency of a guy being like, well, fuck you then, bitch. It's not the same, but I'm going very I'm exaggerating, but it has some of that same flavor. It might not be the exact same energy, but it's kind of got some of that same flavor to it. The way he was like making an idiotic choice, and she's just kind of like, okay, cool. But at the end of the day, she made a choice. She has to live with that, and I'm glad she made that choice. Maybe she will regret it, but at the end of the day, you have to make those choices. And even if you have to regret later on, at least you made that choice. And once again, the choice wasn't made for you. So, yeah. I'm curious to see where things kind of go for Adam. I'm wondering, will he even really be able to start up, or will that kind of crash and burn? Or maybe the irony will be like, yeah, she's, what he's thinking is like, you're going to say it, the bear is going to crash and burn. This is a great opportunity. You could be better than ever, like, but your skills will always be. He didn't quite say this, but he kind of did, where like your skills will always be middling because you will never like reach higher where you could with me. Well, it's also like, I mean, once again, a little narcissistic on his part. Like, well, for me, you're going to reach higher because I'm going to help take your skills to a next level. Sounds a little bit like Joel McHale's character, like his conversation with Carmi last in this season 3 finale. So, I don't know. It's interesting. So like I said, I wasn't expecting her to make that choice. I also wasn't expecting. I thought Adam was going to have a little more decorum to him, be like, I understand, Sid, I'm bummed about it, but hey, your choice is your choice. But once again, he has right to be pissed because he was strung along, and her stringing him along made him feel like it was a certainty, or maybe he just deluded himself into believing it was a certainty, even though it's like, it was so 50-50 because she was going back and forth so much, like a lot of last season and most of this season, so. I don't know, just thought that was fascinating. We have Marcus going to see his dad because his dad's like, oh, let's meet up here. Marcus goes, but he doesn't actually go inside, and he leaves. He sees his dad from behind and then just leaves. And it's like, okay. And he talks to Luca about it later on, and it's like, oh, he's like, is it kind of effed up that I just left? He was like, did you want to go inside? He's like, no. He's like, then it's not effed up. Because they had this really interesting conversation too about, like, obviously Luca referenced back in season 2. I think he talked about it. Yeah, he talked about it with Sid in the season 3 finale about, like, right, he's here because of his sister. And he's like, well, how's that going? He's like, it's going. He plans on potentially coming back to Chicago more often, maybe in the future. Because obviously for him, it's like it actually feels very lovely being back, and it's kind of made things better in a lot of ways. I'm curious, are we ever going to meet this sister of his, and is it going to be someone specific or not? Just kind of like the Francine fact situation. But they had this really interesting conversation about when your life is a mess, you kind of feel like your work is going to be a mess. And then Luca's like, that's one way to look at it. But he's like, sometimes like the food can be positively affected because of the mess. It ends up translating better for the food. Like your food will be better because of what it's basically like. The journey makes the destination that much more sweeter and important because you had to go through all that to get to where you are. And I love that it's like, how's the dish? And he's the dessert. He's like, it's delicious, chef. He's like, then I'm fucked in. It's like, if it's that good, that must mean my life is a hot fucking mess then. So I like that conversation. I mean, you gotta give it to Luca. Luca's throwing out all these beautiful gems because he's talking to Tina because Tina's still struggling, knocking off like that last like 30-ish seconds off or cooking of the pasta. And Luca's like, well, maybe that's as good as it's going to be. And she's like, yeah, but she's worried about that so much. And he kind of gives her the perspective of like, right, I used to sear, I think he said like Wagyu for Carmen. It's like, oh, yes, that's a lot. But he's like, anytime I would do it with any other protein and I do it at home, I'd nail it. But then all of a sudden at work, it's like, it's the pressure. It's that's what really gets to you. But he kind of says like, maybe the pressure isn't a bad thing. And she's like, kind of, elaborating on that. And for him, it's like, yes, the pressure is the sucky thing at first, and you're just like weighing yourself down with it. But then eventually you kind of learn to live with that pressure, and then you're always like, fuck yeah, for like things to kind of what was the word he used? It's almost like you almost kind of look forward to things going wrong because you're like, all right, because I want the pressure. I want to be put under pressure because it really raises a challenge for you, and you kind of get like a thrill out of it. But then he's like, the question then becomes afterwards, after you kind of get used to living with the pressure, being able to challenge it, can you live without it? And she's like, can you? And he's like, honestly, I'm back here working for Carmi, so I don't really have the answer. But he's like, you let me know, chef, when you potentially find that answer. So I just thought, once again, Luke just throwing out these gems of advice. I also do love that he was like looking for a book, and he found like Carmi's book and saw the photo of him, Terry, and Carmi. I was like, oh, that's really beautiful, and just kind of the smirk across his face. We have Sugar and Pete having their conversation about, Sophie and everything, because it's like, obviously the biggest concern that Sugar had was like, once again, all the stuff in her head translating over to her baby was like one of her biggest concerns last season. And it's kind of like, they're joking about like, oh, quiet and peace is fine, but it's like, isn't that a little too weird? Like, shouldn't, like, chaos is kind of our normal, and so we can't, we need, we need to be volatile. We need to fuck our kid up a little bit. But it's like, how do you think she's going to turn out? And Pete's like, looks at her and says, like you. Sadly for Sugar, I think she's feeling better about it now. Last season, that scared her, because it's like, all that I am, I don't want that to translate over to my baby. But Pete means that in all sincerity. It's like, our child will be lucky to end up like you, because I know she'll end up like you, because you are good, you are you. So I think that's such a sweet thing, and I'm hoping Nat is internalizing it that way as a good thing, and not kind of the bad thing she's thinking it might be. So aside from that, we also have Sydney and her dad. And I really like that scene a lot too, because Sid's like, okay, here's your medicine. Are you good? He's like, yeah, like I was 3 minutes ago, or how I was last week. I am good. I'm asking about you. She's like, no, I'm good. He's like, try. All right, nice try. She's like, no, there's nothing going on. She had that whole conversation back in episode 6. It's just like, she does not want her dad to worry. And it's like, she made her choice, but it's still kind of boggling on her with everything going on. She doesn't want to worry him. It's like, I want you to focus on you. And she's trying. She understands, like, yeah, my dad's going to worry about me, but I want to give him less reason to worry about me and focus on his own health. It's like, beep beep means take your meds. Beep 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 means drink water, because you need to be drinking more water. So just thought that was just kind of a nice thing, and just kind of a continuation from episode 6 on her perspective on things, of her just not wanting her dad to worry about her as much anymore. So there's that. I love it's Ted, Chucky, and Chris helping out Fack with the hand thing, because he keeps doing the hand thing. They're like, why do you keep doing that? He's like, I don't know. And it's like, stop. No. They're like, okay, hold your hands. Like, he's got his hands pressed to get his chest. I was like, okay, we're good. And then he starts floating his hands. They're like, put him behind your back or something. It's like, why do you keep doing that? And so he's talking to Richie later on, and it's because he feels like he doesn't belong here. It's like it's an involuntary position, because he's thinking like, this is how you move if you're fancy, because he's like, this place is fancy, the customers that come in are fancy, and I'm not me. And he's like, I feel like shit. I feel like I don't belong here. And then Richie's like, yo, that's not the case. Like, this is your house. They're the ones that kind of like, you're the one that's intimidating them, and then you lower that intimidation to make them more comfortable. That's how, this is your house. You kind of like you kind of set the pace, essentially. I love the whole like Neil, Jeff, Richard Lawrence, and it's just like him leaning in and being like, you're beautiful. It's just like, it's you're okay, Fact. Don't get so caught up in all that stuff, because I think it's also the aspect of Rich, and it's important that Richie's the one that told him that, because Richie struggled with that, feeling like he belonged. That was why he was spiraling and crashing out season 1 and a little bit season 2, because he felt like he didn't belong here anymore, because it's like the beef is all he had, and he's like, without that, like, where do I go? I mean, that was even something Tina kind of threw in his face, and like, I think it was like episode 6 when she was like, where you gonna go, Richie? And it's like, he had no answer, because he didn't have anywhere to go. Like, the beef is all he had, and that's why he needs this place to work out, because it's like, because he even said, like, this is the only thing tethering me. But I think after the wedding and everything, I think he's a little more tethered. I love the conversation he also has with Jess, where she asked him about Mikey, and it's like, oh yeah, that was Carmen's brother, Michael. It was my best friend. And obviously the way he's talking about him in the past, she's like, oh, I'm sorry about your friend. He's like, yeah, me too. And the whole straightening up of like, he's like, oh, I missed it. She's like, no, you're good. And then later on, they're talking where I forgot what it was. She talked about, oh yeah, she's very fast at the napkins, and it's like, whoa. He's like, whoa. She's like, yeah, I was front of house, so obviously. He was like, oh, like, we're in Copenhagen? She's like, I wish. And he was like, why not? She's like, I wasn't good enough. But she's like, I am better now. So, and, it's like asking Richie, like, what was his first job? And it was working at the beef, He's like, and she's like, oh, with Carmen's like, no, it was me, Marcus, Tina, Michael, Ibra, because he's like, yeah, Carmen was already gone by that point in time. And she asked him, is like, oh, did you feel good when he came back? And he didn't answer. And this is something I love so much, and I'll finish their conversation in a little bit, but like later on, he asked a question. He's like, I mean, first and foremost, it's so adorable him being like, did I overstep? Did I share too much? And she's like, what? She's like, no, like I just want to. He's a lot more sensitive about that stuff, because remember how he used to talk in episode 1? It's like, oh my God, Carm, you so woke, and it's just like he was pretty much an asshole, and now he's just being a lot more sensitive to people. I think specifically Jess too, because once again, a lot of people have been feeling that vibe, like, yo, is there going to be a Jess and Richie thing? I know I brought up the last episode, the conversation of like a Sid and him thing, which I would think would be interesting. I don't think it would ever happen, but I think it's just like him and Jess, like a lot of people want to kind of put those two together. And I think they would, and I kind of was catching those vibes even more this episode. We're already catching them previously, but definitely catching them in this episode as well. And, but yeah, he's trying to be a little more sensitive, like, oh, maybe I overshared or something like that. I'm sorry, but she's like, no, I asked, so it's okay. He's like, okay, good. And then he answers her, it's like, you asked me if I missed him. I mean, if I was happy that he came back, and it's like, the answer is yes. And I was like, the reason why I was about to talk about was like, I know I'm going off a diatribe, but it's like, it's all connected, so bear with me. I don't remember if I talked about this in episode 6 of last season. It's the Tina flashback episode. I remember commenting on someone's reaction at this point, but I don't remember if I said it in my review. The Tina episode last season recontextualized Tina's character in a beautiful way, specifically how she acted in the first half of season 1, specifically her relationship with Sid was recontextualized because of episode 6 of last season. This, to me, does the exact same thing for Richie in a lot of ways, but specifically him in the beginning. I mean, a lot of that got recontextualized in season 2, episode 7, Forks, but also it recontextualizes specifically his relationship with Carmi in a similar manner that episode did for Tina and Sid. Which, once again, I also think is really interesting considering Io directed that episode. But anyway, tangents and all that aside, him saying, like, I was happy he was back, but I was worried that he'd be mad at me. Now, my initial thought was like, oh, are you thinking like Carmi would be mad at you because you didn't do anything to stop Michael from, like, taking his own life? You were there, but you were his best friend and you didn't do enough. Because Carmi's issue was he felt like he himself didn't do enough. That's the guilt he carries. But Richie's concern was like, I thought he'd be ashamed of me, And I thought that was it. And it's like, did you ever ask him that? And he's like, fuck no. And it's like, did he ever ask you that? And he's like, how'd you know? She's like, I have brothers. And you see that moment where it kind of like something in Richie's head where it's almost like, huh. I mean, they've always been cousins, but it's like, yo, you are like a brother to me. Like, we are good buds, but we are family, but you are like a brother to me. I think that seemed like that was like a light bulb moment for him. But I think really he probably felt that point of like, because Michael was always that conduit between them. It's like, yo, like, it would always be like, yo, anytime Richie's involved, like, Michael was there. And it's like, are you ashamed of me being a part of your family, especially now that Michael's gone? Like, I don't know if a lot of that was weighing on his mind. Like I said, guilt of, like, I wasn't doing enough. He did have guilt, because he even said, like, back in season 1, like, he thought Michael would come out of it. It's like, yo, he's Mikey Bear. Like, he's the life of the party. Like, I thought he'd just be fine. I didn't know, like, things would play out that way. So he, once again, carries his own guilt about it. And I think that all kind of culminates and makes it so, like, he feels like Carmi would be ashamed of him, because it's like, maybe Carmi blames me, or maybe he sees me as kind of like, oh, this baggage he has to carry. Because he's always, that was the thing of like, yeah, you guys are going to move on and you're going to drop this ass. And then Carmi was like, I'm not going to drop this ass. In reference to Richie, when he was talking about that book about the guy who had no purpose and he got left behind because of it. So, thought that was fascinating. Obviously, I didn't talk about it, but the clock is down. 17 hours left on the clock. And it's like, right, they got 10 hours to service. It's like, well, what do we do from here? It's like, and Richie's like, we just leave it all on the floor. And then him and Sydney shake, and it's just kind of like, yeah, you just kind of have to take things as they are. Another element to this is like Sid went out to get some spoons that were ordered or whatever, and then she sees like Jimmy outside pacing because he's just as much of a nervous wreck as everyone, because he's like, damn, the clock is ticking down, and he's kind of nervous and he's kind of worried too. So I just love Sid. I thought Sid would talk to him, but we didn't get that this episode, so I'm curious if that's something we'll get next episode. Cause I get the feeling like there might not be any skip at all. Like next episode might take place immediately where this episode left off. We'll have to see how that plays out and shakes out, but. I love Gary with the wine, like him putting like, what was it, like a 1988 and a 2001. He's like, and then he picks the bottle back up. He's like, I still can't tell the difference. So later on, they kind of do a blindfold thing. It's him, Neil, and Ted. And it's like, oh, I'm smelling this, I'm tasting this. It's like, it's this. And then like, oh, smell that. And Neil's like, it smells like Skittles. It's not Skittles. And he tastes it, but he gets the date wrong. And it's like, oh, man. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Gary. Smells like Skittles. It's like, does it smell like? He's like, yeah, it smells like Taste the Rainbow. Like, I love that. I love that so much. So, yeah, putting all that aside, there is also Sugar, her conversation with Computer, which I thought was really interesting, where it's like, all right, looking at the numbers. In fact, it's like, oh, the numbers look really, really good. It's like, yeah, they do. And Computer's like, yeah, keeping Marcus around was, a good idea. And she's like, yes, because no one fucks with Marcus. It's like, yeah. Obviously, they made a lot of changes. Some things are great. It's like, oh, yeah, the scallop is kind of killer. And it's like, oh, that's great. He's like, is it really that good? And she's like, it really is that good. He's like, well, shame I don't like scallops. And she's like, oh, that is a shame. But it's like, yeah, they've done a lot of good. And it's like the parallel he makes it where like their parachute is about to run out at that 0 mark but it's like, no, but we can keep going. But he's like, but can you pay them? But she's like, but we can keep going. He's like, you want to have an umbrella basically the size of an umbrella that can fit in your pocket, and it's like the rain is still going to pour all around you. Like that umbrella is only going to be able to do so much, right? And so he's asking like, you're not asking the right question. And she's like, well, what is the right question? I thought the question ended up being, why should you keep going? I thought the question was going to be, should you keep going? The question is, why would you keep going? And then she kind of doesn't answer, but she looks at all the photos and and she smiles because she's looking like this is the reason to keep going, because of all of them, every one of them. That's the reason to keep going. This family is, there's so much history here. There's so much legacy here that's all the reason. But the people here, it's the reason to keep going. So we'll see how that all plays out. We also finally have Carmi going to his mom because he's dropping off the photos, because he talked about it last episode. I want to say it was like episode 9 of last season. Was that episode 9 of last season? Like, there was an episode that ended with him like finding a box and opening with some old family photos, and basically their mom kept bugging Nat about it, so Nat bugs Carmi about it. So Carmen gets the photo and he has to drop it off to his mom, and he's talking to Claire, and it's like, oh, they seem to be good. They're communicating. Everything seems great. It's like, oh, going to see your mom. It's like, yeah. It's like, she's like, I know how hard that is for you. He's like, yeah, thanks. And she's like, was it a Michael birthday party or was it a Fact birthday party where she tried to grill the pizza? And he was like, it was a Richie birthday party. He's like, how do you remember that? She's like, because she almost burned the house down and I lost my favorite green sweater. And it's like, oh, what did it look like? It was a sweater that was green. And so it's like, right, I'll, I as long as you're doing this, so, my break's about to end. And I thought it was kind of this beautiful moment where he was about to call her because he was nervous about calling her back. But then, like, she calls him. And I love that, obviously, he answered, of course. But it's like, once again, she called pre-season 2. He couldn't bring himself to answer because he got distracted. Fridge guy, Claire. Then, like, Marcus called him. But either way, he ends up answering. He's like, hello. And she's like, I just want you to know, like, she was like, I'm proud of you for doing that because, like, I know how much of a hard thing it is for you to do what you're about to do. And he's like, thanks. He's like, in fact, I was actually going to call you back. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, I wanted something to say. She's like, you don't have to apologize. He's like, no. I want to say something I should have always said to you and never did. It's like, that you are wonderful. And she's like, okay, then go and get my green sweater then. He's like, okay, I love that. And the episode ends with him knocking on Dee's door. So that's what I'm saying. I'm curious if we're just going to skip some of that, or will the next episode immediately pick up? Because once again, they are down to 17 hours, so I definitely feel like the next episode will be immediately picking up where this episode left off. But I'm so excited to see where the ultimate episode of the season takes us and what that kind of sets up for the season finale. Once again, all these threads, all these storylines, I'm curious to see how it all plays out. But yeah. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.